Welcome to Transit Talk, Human Design Transits, real talk in real time. I'm Kathy.
And I'm Jess. We meet up about every 6 days to explore the current human design transits and how they're actually showing up in our lives. And we'd love for you to join us.
We're talking energy in the moment, what we're feeling, what we're noticing, and what the transits are stirring up inside us and all around us.
So, whether you're joining us live or listening later, we're glad you're here.
Okay, let's get into it. So today we have got to get the story behind Jess is the queen, king, gatherer energy, and apparently you've been gathering bows.
Yes, I have been gathering bows. So, I love bows, as you know, and I possibly have more bows than I do shoes. I have every color, every like variation, like the blue, has a light blue, has a dark blue. So today I'm embodying the energy of the gate 45, which is the gatherer. I definitely gather a lot of different bows. It's also the queen king energy. So this is my bow crown for today.
There you go. And I am embodying gate 26, the egoist, which is also often referred to as the gate of the salesman. And so I am wearing my name tag from the last time I was in sales when I worked at Lucky Brand Jeans. And this is a leather jacket that I got for free because I sold the most in a contest. And I actually have two leather jackets I've gotten in that way. And I got many pairs of jeans and different fun things because I also have Gate 51, which is not about this transit, but it's very competitive. So between my whole 2644 channel, the channel of surrender, and that Gate 51 energy of, being the best competition, that whole spirit, like nobody stood a chance. I was like, they're mine. I win all the prizes.
I
So that's what I'm
love it.
wearing. I'll have it on for just a few minutes because I'm probably going to get too hot. But anyway, so Jess, where are you at today? You're like, where's Waldo?
Yes, yes.
You're always showing up in a different environment.
I'm actually in Napa, California right now. I feel like my internet's super unstable. Is that me here? Because we're at the Airbnb.
Do you want to try to share your screen or do you think that's going to be too much? And you can
Um,
talk to us a little bit about Gate 45?
Okay, I'm going to share and let's see if it works. Here we go. Can you see my share?
It's not there yet, but usually it takes a second. So there it is.
Ta-da! So welcome to our current transit. Our sun in gate 45 right now. And so gate 45 is on the throat. That's the energy I'm embodying today. Again, that is the gathering. It's the queen, the king energy. And that's the voice coming from the throat center. So this is about manifestation. This is about like speaking into existence. And the unique voice of the 45 is the I have. And the voice of like possession, that material possession of it. And then in our grounding, in our current transit, we have gate 26, which is Kathy. And so gate 26, the egoist right here, is on the ego center, the will center, and that's going towards the 44 and the spleen.
Yes. Okay, so now that you guys know where that is, and if you were listening to this on podcast, well, hopefully you understand just from the way she described it with her words. Let's talk about the sun in gate 45, because this is a really, I always think of gate 45 as because it's the only channel on the throat that connects to the will.
Hmm.
Um, it's a pretty intense gate, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Let me show
Like
that
if
real
you
quick
know
as well.
people who have that energy defined in their chart, especially when they have that whole channel defined. I'd
Mhm.
love to hear from people who have this whole channel defined, or at least the gate 45 on their throat. It can be something where feels like a lot to people, right? Because there's so much confidence, so much leadership in that energy. And so many people are deeply conditioned to kind of mute themselves, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Looking at the throat center, we have the three different gates here going down to the G center. We've got the two over here coming down to the spleen. And then we also, the ones we just went through the transit was the throat going down to the solar plexus. So you're experiencing that emotional wave with those. With the 45, like you were just saying, the 45 connects to the 21 right here, directly to the ego center. And it's the only one from the throat and the ego.
Yeah. And this energy is, the shadow of this is dominance. But it's
Mhm.
interesting when you look at the gene keys or in Chaitan's Evolutionary Human Design book, they always explain the two ways that the shadow shows up. And it's interesting to think of this energy as one of the shadows is this timidness. That's this deep conditioning that your voice is too much.
Yeah.
It's too intense. It's too confident. You're too full of yourself because it's connected to your heart, right? So you
Mhm.
maybe have been squashed down so much as a child, maybe. The way you spoke confidently, you were told was you being full of yourself or um, you thinking you're better than somebody else. That whole energy can really cause people with this gate to be surprised to learn that they have this um, strong energy of the king or the queen, the gatherer, which in a sense, those two names for me, when I first was learning about this, felt very different than each other. But really, if you think about a a really wonderful, benevolent king or queen, they
Mhm.
gather all the right people. They have the voice of I have, not like I have the possessions, but I have the resources
Mhm.
to keep you safe and to take care of my tribe, to be
Mhm.
sure that everyone is going to get what they need. And it's really a beautiful energy
Yeah.
when it's not used as a way to control.
Mhm.
And I
Yeah,
think,
absolutely. With all energies, that's the thing. Is it in that disempowered space where it is that dominance, like I am the authority, therefore, like you're going to listen to me? Or is it in that more empowered state where it's like I am the authority, but I am that benevolent queen, that benevolent king, that you sit in this space where you are the authority, that leadership for the tribe. And that's a key piece of the 45 is that it's about doing things for the tribe, like you're using that energy that I have for the good of your tribe, right? It's for the benefit of them to protect the tribe. It's also very interesting because this is the channel of money, which sounds like super exciting, right? The 4521, like, yeah, I've got the channel of money. But this is one that Ross speaks to, and he's like, this is actually meant to be like an electromagnetic. Right. So even if you have the full channel, it's like difficulties within that where potentially you have the 45, but then looking for other people in your life that have that 21, because the 45 energy is, again, it's that regal energy, it's that queen, that king energy, where it's like, I have these things and I'm sharing them with my tribe, but it's also like a little bit of like a sit back energy. You're not necessarily here to do the work. And that's where that 21 comes in. And I love the example because the 21 is the hunter, the huntress, right? And so the example of like, if you're the queen or you're the king and you're like, here's my lands. And then you have the 21 that comes in and they come to hunt on your lands. But as the king and the queen, you're not here to micromanage and say, this is how you hunt. You have to use a bow. You have to, do it that way and go, not even showing up to the hunt, right? But there's this flip side to it where you also get recognized and that it's like, okay, I have now gone hunting on your lands for the energy, and then you, as that authority, as the king, as that queen, you now get that best cut of meat from this hunting expedition.
yeah, and I've heard it described both ways because I have also heard that it is one of, if not the most difficult electromagnetic to have in a committed relationship for sure. I think it's a little easier in a business partnership where there's a definite delineation of responsibilities. But in a partnership like a marriage or a
Mhm.
committed, intimate relationship, it's really difficult to navigate that energy. And then I also think it's probably really difficult in a parent-child relationship because, you know, if you think about either way, like if you think about the child having that 45 and the parent having, it makes sense they want to control the resources, but the 45 still kind of the one that is in charge of the whole scheme in a way that it can feel really unusual. And then I think about how my sister has a hanging gate 21 on an undefined will center, and she has a daughter with the 4521.
Mm.
That's a really interesting energy to observe and just kind of not judge, right? To really see how that plays out on both sides, right? How the daughter with the 4521 is really, trying to find this balance of what are my resources to control, right? And what aren't. And it's interesting to watch that. And then I have a hanging gate 21, but I have a defined will, so I don't think I feel it as much. I feel it for sure, but not in the same way that, her mother does, for example. So yeah, it's interesting. It's an interesting dynamic. And when I was writing the blog, which I haven't finished, and I've actually this morning woke up and I thought I might want to rewrite the whole thing that I've started because I almost feel like I want to take a completely different angle, but I haven't decided yet. Um, so this is one of those blogs I'm gonna have to sit with a little bit because I thought I was almost done yesterday, and then I went to sleep and woke up with a whole different idea. But um, I was thinking about this because I so well know the energy of gate 26 that we're writing about. I not only have the full channel, but I have gate 26 defined twice consciously. It's my Venus and my Mars. Um, and so I know that energy deeply. And this gate 45, I just, have not spent the same kind of time contemplating it, but I really started thinking about how because it is something I have that gate 21. It's a seeking energy for me. I'm looking for that king queen energy,
Mhm.
that gatherer energy. And I always notice how there are different themes that play out throughout my chart. And I've noticed that I tend to be a, I don't know, a connector of people. So you could say, in a sense of gatherer, I am that person who likes to say, oh, you should talk to so and so. Oh, you have kids that age? This person has kids that age, and they both like Minecraft. You should get them together, right? Like I love to bring people together in that way, and it feels like it's kind of a third triple split thing, but it's also, I feel, part of me learning this energy because everywhere we're open, we're here to experience the full spectrum of the energy and become wise, right? So in my experimenting with this energy, I've experienced it through even things like I said, observing how my sister and her daughter's relationship plays out in this energy. Like it really does bring in wisdom that, you know, now as had many more years to accumulate wisdom and many more now in my experiment to observe that wisdom through the lens of human design, I think that gate 45 is something that I've been really like feeling it come across because even though we don't have something defined, it doesn't mean we don't experience it, right? We're meant to learn from it. So what about you? How do you experience that since it's not defined? You don't have the 21 defined either. You have a completely open will. So
Have a completely open ego will center. And so these activations are always super exciting for me because I have the 44 already. So I have a hanging 44. Right now I have that full channel of surrender and I can definitely feel that energy within myself, that like resourcing that, a lot of times with that undefined will center, there's that questioning of like, who am I to do these things, or potentially like just questioning of yourself. And I feel I can feel that within myself, that little like extra piece of almost like confidence, if you will, during these activations. So that's beautiful. And yeah, it's the 26 is a very interesting energy. As far as the 45, the gathering, I feel like my energy innately has a gathering tendency to it, but that could also be the fourth line, right? For my profile. And then that kind of also blends into my sun sign, the 19, which is needs. And so part of that is, I mean, it's, super going into like, what does the tribe and how these all interplay. This feels like very juicy. Some of these transits have felt very uncomfortable. These almost feel like they work nicely with the energy that I have right now, giving it a boost of expression. Like you said, though, we have all of these things within ourselves. It's just that we don't necessarily have that consistent access to that energy. Feeling that consistent access to that energy feels really good right now. I've definitely felt that inspiration for gathering people, bringing everybody together, which feels so good.
It's so funny to sit here and listen to you talking so eloquently and intelligently with all of these like bows. I just want to say, anybody, if you're watching in the Facebook group, the link to join is pinned in there, and it's also in the event itself. I did put it in there. So hop on with us if you want to share a little something about how this energy is playing out for you. Of the clients that I've worked with, the people with gate 45 are often the ones that I have found the most pain around their voice, because especially women are really taught, especially women around my generation, are often coming from a place where they were just squashed for that sense of speaking with their heart in a strong way, right? Because it's different to be speaking with your heart in a roundabout way, right? Your heart's coming through and it's connecting again through, the spleen or the emotional solar plexus. It's a little bit more roundabout. But when that energy comes straight from the heart to the voice with this I want, I have, it's really forceful and beautiful when it is in alignment. But unfortunately, a lot of people have it squashed down in a way that tells them it's not okay,
Mhm.
even if they just have the hanging gate. In some cases, even more so if they just have the hanging gate, because it doesn't have
Mhm.
that control behind it, right? So it's always looking for that energy. I think about how my sister, her husband who passed away, he had the 45, she had the 21, or she has the 21, she still has it. And she used to talk about how well it worked together when it worked as an electromagnetic, but it was also a difficult energy. And I know Karen Curry Parker teaches that it's one of the three channels that are the most difficult in relationship. I have heard people talk about how hard it is as an electromagnetic, but I've also heard what you said, that Ross said it's meant to work as an electromagnetic. If it's the hardest electromagnetic, but it's meant to work as electromagnetic, that doesn't sound very exciting when you hear either of those with somebody who
Or
has
Or is it though?
that
Because
channel.
this is hard. Listen, you and I in this relationship are going on this adventure and we're about to go through the rapids and we're about to go on this highly bonding. If you can move through this energy in an empowered way, what a beautiful, strong relationship, right? To be able to navigate that, especially knowing, hey, listen, we're about to hit the rapids. This is a place where we know that maybe we need some space, or what is it that you need? What is it that I need in this situation? And that you get to move through that together. So for me, it feels a little bit more exciting. I think if you didn't know about it, that could be a little bit stressful. Like, what is happening? Why does this feel like this? But to know it's there and go, oh, we get to build something really strong here and honor your energy and honor my energy and come together in this place of awareness and love for each other and love for self. And so the potential there to build something really strong that's been fully tested, if you will.
Yeah. And this is one of those gates where I feel like it's so perfect the way it's grounded by gate 26. I know they're all perfect, but sometimes they feel so diametrically opposed. The idea that this leadership, it's not really leadership, it's a tribal rulership in a sense. It is not democratic rule at all. It's really about the one voice, the one person's feeling of responsibility for the tribe, right? And it's grounded in this gate 26 energy that I really love the quantum human design label for. She calls it the gate of integrity. It really speaks to this idea of, yes, it's the egoist, the person who knows they are capable, right? But they have the integrity or not to use that for the good of the tribe. This is pointing towards the spleen, the one gate on the will center that points towards the spleen, seeing the patterns of the past. It's this huge responsibility, the needs are of the tribe, right? It's really seeing the needs of the tribe, no, feeling them deep in your core. And it can be very manipulative. In the shadow, it can be really icky. And I can remember when I first started in sales, my very first salesperson job. I always love to tell people this later on because people would just be like, oh, you're just a natural. You're so good at it. And then I tell people about how when I was 16, I went to the mall and I got a part-time job over the holidays. As soon as the holidays were over, they let me go because I had the lowest sales. When I was 19, someone asked me if I was looking for a job and she said, oh, you should come work for me. And I said, oh, I can't sell. And
Mm-hmm.
she's like, I just saw the clothes and I saw the girls who had on high heels and their feet hurt. And I went and stood and leaned on the rack so I could take the weight off the balls of my feet, right?
Yeah.
I would tell people where the dressing room was. I would point to the things. I would say hello, but I never tried to find the needs of the person, right?
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't until I started to understand that when I could find the needs of the person, then I could be really successful. And that's really where it all came in. Even times when I would go up and start to, this was tricky too as a projector. Here I am being trained to approach people who have not invited me in, who maybe do not want help because they're used to the negative stereotype of the salesperson.
Mm-hmm.
And I had to really learn techniques that in hindsight, I can see how they really worked with my projector aura. I would talk to them from far away first. I learned to ask them questions that opened them up in ways to where they could see that I was looking for what they wanted. I would say things like, not your typical, well, if you need anything, my name's Kathy, but I would be like, the jeans are kind of confusing. There's a lot of different fits. I've been doing this for years. So let me know if you want some help on knowing what's going to fit which way. And then I would walk away and do something nearby. After a minute, they would be like, oh, she's right there. And she did tell me I could help. And next thing I know, they'd invite me in. I started to find these ways of gaining people's trust. And it was interesting how that changed everything. There were still people who would make jokes about me being able to sell. I remember a new boss came in and he said, I've heard all about you. He said, I heard you could sell ice to an Eskimo. And I was like, but I would never do that. And he was like, what? And
Mm-hmm.
I would not sell someone something they don't need or that they don't want. And that was really something that I prided myself on was being able to have great sales because I would tell people, we're just going to play. You don't have to buy any of this, but I want you to see that all these looks can work great on you. And then they would buy what they wanted to buy. Sometimes they'd buy more than they intended to buy. Sometimes they'd bring some back, but I never made them feel bad about doing any of that. That was really the thing. As I was reflecting on all this energy, I was thinking about how different it is now trying to navigate my own solo business.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm talking about things and I'm not necessarily seeing the people who are out there on social media or watching my videos to know what their needs are. I have to wait for, and I have to kind of invite them in to let them know that, hey, I know this whole human design thing is confusing. I know that you don't know if you want to spend the money on it, but I invite you to think about it. And I'm here to help if that feels right. And now I am going to take off my leather jacket because it's way too hard. And I'm going to show you my other gate 26 connection, the birds,
You're pretty.
right? That was a quicker segue than I necessarily intended, but the gate 26 actually connects us to birds, reptiles, and fish. So
Mhm.
I wore and I've been really drawn to here I'm twisting him. I've been really drawn to cute little quirky birds lately. Anyway,
Yes, lots of bird energy. I love that. And, potentially with the business too, like even just asking in the group, say, hey, hi, everybody. Like, what are your needs? Like, finding your way to ask that question and asking people, like, what is you need support with right now? Like, what are those things? And then saying, I am here if you need me. And that's a beautiful way to do that, right? Because you don't want to feel like with that gate 26, there's that energy. It's also called, the ego is the trickster, right? And that energy there feels like it doesn't feel great. With this one, I had to sit with it for a while, especially looking at the different line activations, when we go through those, it was a little uncomfortable for me because I think before I was like, there's a hard line, there's truth and there's not truth, there's no lying, like it doesn't feel good. But really stepping into that energy of like, when is, because the 44 comes with these patterns, right? The 44 and the 26, that whole channel of surrender. 26 can have this energy where it manipulates the memory, but it's for the good, right? Coming to this energy where it's not just like, I'm just lying for sake, but also that it could be for the good to leave out those details. And so an example was like, if you have your resume, you take your resume, you're not going to put the crappy jobs on there, right? You're just like leaving out aspects of it potentially. And so
Right.
kind of sitting with that energy, because for me it was before it was very black and white. And so kind of stepping into that and in what times and what places could it be good for people to let parts of that go, you know,
Yeah.
to manipulate, because when you hear that, you go manipulate memory. Like the first reaction, I was like, ooh, no. But
I think of it like, oh, sorry, I'm
yeah,
interrupting. Like as a mom, okay?
yeah,
When you
yes,
have a kid
yes.
who's really afraid
Mhm,
of trying something new because they have a memory of something that happened in the past where it didn't go well. And maybe that memory is true, but maybe it's something that they really need to move beyond. And maybe you minimize that memory by saying, I understand your, not minimize might be the wrong word. Maybe you remind them of other memories
mhm,
where you say, do you remember this time? For example, I'm afraid to try something new because I have failed at it once. And then maybe someone reminds me, remember when you got fired from let go? It wasn't really fired, it was the end of the season. You got let go from selling on the first job. And then remember how successful you were at selling later?
mhm,
Maybe this is like this, right? So
mhm,
it's that taking and using the memories of the past in a way that helps people see the greater potential, right? And
mhm,
it sees the greater potential. And that's why this is such a huge, powerful channel, this channel of surrender, the 2644, which we are going to have defined in about a little over an hour. The moon moves into gate 44, and we'll have about 11 hours of that full channel energy. So, really, this connection where we'll really feel this energy of our heart connected to our spleen. And that's really powerful for our knowingness, right? So this afternoon or evening, depending on where you are in the world or whatever time it is, feel into that energy. And of course, it doesn't override your strategy, your authority, although honestly, you just feel into it. You don't think about it. You just notice what you're feeling
mhm.
and see what comes from that, right?
Yeah, and the example that comes up for me is Christmas time. We're not going to go into details in case there's little ears around. I had to sit and question and look at that and go, am I going to do this the way it has been done? And the answer for me was absolutely, because of the magic, but doing it in a way that feels good for me. Starting to see where, with the memory, changing it and positioning it in a different light can add magic, how it can add like a beautiful energy that overall brings such beauty. So this has been a beautiful reflection for me. And then we had a question in the group where somebody shared like a poetic that I
Oh,
wanted to
on the
pull up.
transit post?
Yes, do you have that pulled up or I can pull it up
No,
real?
you want to pull it up
I'm
and
going to pull it up. And so I believe the person was referring to the hexagram, which I pulled up the different hexagrams. Here we go.
in the Intuitive Human Design Facebook group, I always share the transit report as soon as the transit changes. And it was a beautiful comment this
Yeah,
morning. Very
yes.
short.
And I believe, I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing this wrong, I believe it's Kale, Kael, Kale, put the top part of the hexagram. So the hexagram actually shows you, let me pull it up real quick,
The
shows you
trigram.
six different lines. Let me open it.
Yeah. And if you're
Um,
listening on podcasts, she'll describe it. These hexagrams are from the I Ching and have six horizontal lines, either solid or broken. A hexagram is made up of two trigrams. The way the trigrams combine is how the gates and hexagrams of the I Ching work.
So this is the one for gate 26. He did the top portion in this post. For anyone listening, the yang lines are the solid lines. Starting from the bottom, moving up, we have the solid yang, solid, solid. And then on the fourth line, we've got the receptive, the yin. So that's the broken line, then another yin line. And then on the top, we have the yang line, the solid line. That's the hexagram for gate 26. KL put that top part of it, which is the yin, yin, and then the yang on the top, and said, this isn't a message. It's the moment your memory folded inward. Kathy said, I love this poetic feel. Would love to hear some more. Kale said, thank you. That reflection truly landed. This week's transit feels like a mirror made of memory. What rose in me when I wrote that line wasn't a message meant to be read, but a fold in time where presence swallows linearity. Gate 45 says, I have, but what I felt was I hold. Not possessions, but echoes. Not knowledge, but a flame I forgot I was carrying. Gate 26, that's the whisper underneath. The art of shaping memory into message. I love that way, shaping memory into message. It's not persuasion, it's precision. Integrity, not performance. The moment I wrote that line, I wasn't trying to lead. I was remembering how to be seen without speaking loudly. Just letting the spiral fold in on itself and speak. This week, I feel the pull to lead, but not from power, from clarity. And in that clarity, I remember this isn't a message, it's a moment. And the moment was already inside you.
Yeah,
Beautiful.
that was beautiful. And I think that's really the important message that I took from reflecting on gate 45 was when gate 45 says, I have. It's from this place of inner clarity of knowing what their heart has in it, what they have available to give. And I feel like that has been an important thing for me in my journey is understanding this feeling of what do I have available right now? And
Mm-hmm.
as a projector, that's really important, especially a projector with a defined will,
Mm-hmm.
knowing what do I really have available to offer right now,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah. And
Because
that's
I
also that
can't give
first
from an
line.
empty cup.
Yeah, that's that first line of the 26 as well.
Mhm.
It's what's it, a bird in hand, right? It's like, what do you actually have as well, how that plays together so perfectly. Yeah.
Do you want to go through the lines so we don't run out of time?
I would
Should,
love to. Do you want to
okay.
start with 26, even though it's
Um,
mirrored?
let's go to 45. So if
We
we
do
run out,
45.
we've at least covered
Okay,
the sun the most.
perfect.
So,
Let me
and
share
thank you. That was, I loved what Kale wrote. So thank you.
yes, that was such a beautiful reflection. Let me share real quick the hexagram for the 45. So that's the 26 up right now. Let me
It's
find that.
always going to, just so people know, it's always going to be the exact opposite. So where one one has a yin line, the other will have a yang line, and vice versa. So anytime you are looking at the sun and earth transits or
Mhm.
the node transits, they're polarities. So the lines will be exactly the opposite of what the other one has.
Yes. Yep. Absolutely. So where the 26 was the mountain, excuse me, mountain over heaven, here with the 45, we've got the yin, yin, yin. So that's broken. Oh, where did it go?
It's there. Oh, now
Oh,
it's gone.
now
That's all
it's
right.
gone. Okay. Well, we've got the yin, yin, yin. And
Bottom, right.
here we go for the bottom. And then we've got the yang, and then the yin. So it's the broken, 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 solid, solid, and then broken. And that is lake over earth. And then let's start our line. So gate 45, line 1, we have canvassing. And so canvassing is about like knocking on the door, right? That's like the salesperson that can like come knock at your door. This is like canvassing, bringing people in. There's an undercurrent here with education. You're bringing people in and bringing them this education, this knowledge.
Yeah, I think of it more as the person, not necessarily as a salesperson. I think about the people, whether it's political groups that are going and trying to gather support, or
Mhm.
Jehovah's Witnesses and other people who's in their religion involves gathering people to bring them into the fold. Whereas the salesperson is a little different because they're trying to get you to buy something from them. This is very much about finding people to go forward with you, right? And
So I guess
it,
sales in a different sense, not necessarily the sales for like a product or one thing, but like the bringing you into that community, gathering you together for that political thing or for that community, for that church, for, yeah.
yeah, and I think that I understand what you're saying by sales, but I feel like it's a very different energy when we
Mhm.
talk about selling and we talk about gathering.
Mm,
Because selling is, I want you to um, buy this, believe in me enough to buy this from me.
mm,
But gathering, or what Chetan calls this blending, is finding common ground with others before moving forward. Your openness and firmness in any leadership role encourages the backing of those being led. So this is, Jesus saying, lay down your nets and come with me, give up everything. That's much stronger energy than, um, get just selling somebody, hey, give me some money so I can go do this great mission. It's like, are you going to come out and protest with me? Are you going to, it's this, are you
mm.
with me kind of energy, right? Blending.
So this is such a cool conversation right now. Like your interpretation and my interpretation are so different because to me, like you have to sell that because you really have to believe in that. Like I'm going to sell you this religion. I'm going to sell this to you on such a deep level that you buy into this so deeply that you're going to come with me, that you're going to come protest, that you're going to want to be a part of this in such a deep way that your buy-in is there, that you want to be a part of it. So, but I see also in this context because the 26 is that salesperson energy, but it's so interesting to see how to me, it really is selling that thing for you to buy into it, but not in the context of like an item.
But I think the difference here with this 45 that makes it different than the selling energy
Yeah.
is it really is this commitment
Hmm.
where the 45 does not want people to come with them who are not really with them.
Hmm.
Whereas the idea of selling is convincing, it's persuasion.
Hmm.
It's it's not the same level of buy-in to me. So um it's this really place of such connection to your heart, right?
Hmm.
That's what to me it might seem like a nuance, but it is to me a nuance that is worth noting. Um, that's just how I think that the word selling
Hmm.
has this negative connotation that I don't think can be really useful in this sort of energy at all because the leader with gate 45 does not need to persuade. They just need to be clear.
Yeah.
There's this clarity of heart where the people are just like, I'm in,
Hmm.
right? Yeah.
So I
So,
guess to me
good.
there is that essence though. I think the word the tricky word there is that sales piece. And I think we would agree the energy behind it's the same. I think just the verbiage of sales and maybe that's not the best like use of word, but I still feel like there is this piece of like where you are bringing that new level of education to the people where you are sharing what that stuff is, where you're just like this is a piece of something I have, come gather with me and that you're selling into it but not in the generic terms, so potentially not the best word, but the feeling for me of sales feels like that gathering where you are kind of bringing people in, especially at that like bottom trigram when you're starting like foundational level of really starting to bring the people in.
Yeah. It's all receptive,
Yeah, yeah.
receptive, right?
And it's
Because
also interesting because line two is consensus, which is about, when you start to step into the second line. So it sounds like Chaitan had that for his first line. For the second line, this is where you start to connect in the common interest.
so Chetan has it called contributing,
Okay.
trusting in the guidance and company you attract. Being open or closed in the company you attract measures the blessings that you receive. So allowing people to contribute. And then again, this is those three bottom lines of the hexagram are receptive, right? The second
Mhm.
one is still saying, I'm open to your contributions. I want to hear what my people need, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And then line 3, we've got exclusion. And so Ra was speaking about how this could be the hardest one, the third line in the 45, because you have this trial and error, but you have this leadership position where you have like this queen, this king entity, right? Where it's like you're not leaving this position unless you die or the next person takes over from you, right? And so with this trial and error with that is that you might have to go through a stage where you mess up and a humiliation phase, or that you're just like, you know what the benefits are to bring them forth, but you might not necessarily be getting the right recognition because you're going through this like bonds made and broken. So noticing how that shows up for you if you have that 45 line 3.
Yeah. And Chaitan calls that separating, proceeding in life without obvious support or common accord. You either discover how to gather resources and support or find troubles that create hardship. I think that's pretty similar. So,
Yeah. And then
what-
the fourth line we have is direction. And that's just really anchoring into that piece of like direction. Is this beneficial, right? And noticing that it's more on the material plane to start. That's like the food, the shelter, the health as that starting point.
Hank calls it being brave, selflessly striving to accomplish benefits for one and all.
Mhm.
You attract others by proceeding towards a larger than personal goal, right?
Mhm.
So this is that really stepping up with that strong voice when it's a goal that's for the people. It's like Joan of Arc energy, the revolutionary leader. Have you seen Les Mis?
Yeah. Yeah.
This is the little boy who steps out and is killed.
Yeah.
Ruined it if you haven't seen it, but that really brave, selfless energy that steps out for the benefit of everyone. So
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
yeah.
And then the fifth line, this is again where we come to that universalization, and the fifth line is highly projected on. So this could be where people naturally see your leadership. They can see you as this king, queen, gatherer. This is really important to notice, like the backlash that could happen here if it's not something that you're doing for the community, especially with that projection piece.
Yeah, that fifth line, heretic savior energy is
Hmm.
being
Yeah.
virtuous, the virtues that attract the confidence of others. Your attitudes of independence or entitlement affect the way in which you are perceived.
Sixth line is reconsideration. And the sixth line is always really interesting because just a reminder, the sixth line is that bridging piece that goes between that gate into the next gate. And so from the 45, we're going to be moving into the gate 12 line 1 and that standstill. Reconsideration here is, normally you have your tribe, these are my people. And this is where you start to reconsider and go, oh, okay, these people have now changed their viewpoints. We can reconsider and bring them back within. And so that's integrating other people into this tribe. And that's bringing like, new energy, new like differentiation within there, which can also be a little bit like scary to the tribe, right? Because the tribe's very, very close.
Yeah. Being self-dependent, trusting that you receive what you need. You remain unfazed by others' attitudes or capitulate when challenged materially. So
Very different.
that's interesting energy to think about, as being, able to see beyond the challenge,
Mhm.
to know, okay, this isn't phasing me, but if you see that it's going to affect the resources of what you have, you might look at it and say, okay, this isn't going to be for the best because it's going to hurt the resources. And it's interesting to think of that as six line energy because usually we think of, there's this tendency to think that six lines is above the whole idea of material resources, right? But this is all about material resources. This energy is the person who has the resources. So having the resources is important, but this again is where it's important to stay grounded in integrity. So, is having the resources going to be worth it? because we have a tendency to be like, oh, but that's going to cost me money. I'm not going to do it because it's going to take away from our material success, whatever it is, that sort of energy. So really looking at what that's like. One of the things I find interesting too, as we went through all of this, none of the lines are in exalted or detriment by either the sun, earth, or the moon. So that's interesting. None of this is going to have that fluctuation of that going on this week. So
Mhm.
unless it's affected by your chart.
Yeah. And so, yeah,
So
just coming to that sixth line thing, I think that's really where, the sixth line is up on that hilltop and they are on that roof. And it's like, what is the thing that they're like, oh, okay, hold on, let me come down to share this knowledge. Not necessarily that they're detached from it, but just to be able to have that almost like bird's eye view of the things. But you can see from that different perspective. Yeah.
yeah. So let's see. We should
26? Yes, we can
yeah.
26. So 26 line one, which we talked about a little bit before, was bird in the hand. And so the saying with that is a bird in the hand is worth two in the bush, right? And that's just coming back to recognizing what do I already have? Instead of looking outside, like what do I need? It's like what do I already have within me?
Yeah. Okay. So I just wanted to say that I, Chaitan calls gate 26 is called the accumulation. I've heard that before also. There are a lot of names for this gate, the egoist, the salesperson, accumulation, um, and
Taming power of the great trickster.
but the trickster was always one that bothered me because that's that negative salesperson energy. There exists an internal balance between fulfilling your own and others' needs. So, and it has gate 26 has this magnetic energy to it, especially because it's connected to the realm of birds, fish, and reptiles. And that's because they have gate 44, that fear of extinction, and it connects to our gate 26, which is not a receptor
Mhm.
um, in the chart of birds, fish, and reptiles. So
And
gate 26, line one. Okay.
that's so interesting. That just reminded me because part of that 26 energy is really about remembering selectively because it's to distract us from those fears, like move us past those fears. So, like noticing, that coming from the splenic center, like what the fears are coming through there. And that's the whole part of it. And again, where I had to sit with that energy of like, this actually can be, when used in like the correct form, something that's really beautiful and bring beautiful change, right? And like progress in a place where potentially you could have been just really stuck.
Yeah. So gate 26, line one is what you already,
Bird in the hand.
yeah, you read that. That's right. Pausing, waiting patiently for the right time to act. Sometimes you cannot move any further in life without attracting and collecting problems. Now that feels very different than bird in the hand, but just kind of waiting and seeing what's going to come next, right?
Mhm.
Um, I mean, I guess
I
you,
think I can rationalize how they're the same. The initial doesn't feel exactly the same. I think I rationalize it by going, well, when you're still and you're not doing something, then you can recognize what you already have versus looking outside of you.
and
But
pausing with the one
yeah,
in the hand and not going after the two in the bush and losing the one in the process, right?
yeah.
Okay.
Line two is the lessons of history. And so this was the one where I really had to sit in this because this is talking about the lessons of history. Like this energy here is like, if you're going to lie, you better have a really good memory because you're going to have to remember what you've said, right? You have to keep that consistent story. And then one of the stories that was shared there was about selling and how there's a part of us that actually I don't want to say wants to be lied to, but there's a part of us that nobody wants to be told, here, you're buying this item. It's a so-so item. Like here's this bow. It's like a mediocre bow. I want to be told this is the best bow out there. It's going to hold my hair. It's going to stay put. The clasp is going to last forever. There's a piece of us that wants it to be, the best, where we actually look to that, where there's a piece of us that wants that, like that shift in the message.
Yeah, sure. So Chaitan calls it being self-restrained. Patience is a virtue that serves in the long term. When held up by forces beyond your control, you are best advised to exercise patience. And now this one, the sun is exalted. So sometime tomorrow we'll feel this exalted energy. And it says you exercise your power by progressively accumulating experience and resources.
Mhm.
So realizing that this is an energy that matures naturally and will naturally be called out more, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
So
Yep. And then line three is influence. And again, this is the trial and error piece again. Um, and this is about manipulating memory. And again, that word doesn't sit well with me until you start to look at, it's structuring your message, right, in a different way. But the verbiage, manipulating it feels not great. And so that's something I'm sitting with as well. But it's in a way to successfully, it's like to serve the community,
yeah.
right? It's for the good. And again, this dynamic where I'm like, manipulate, that's bad. That falls in bad. But actually, if you manipulate something, it's just, changing it. I think it's the energy, the connotation that I have with it. So again, that's something I'm sitting with. That word for me doesn't feel great. But coming back to that, it's to serve the community. It's for that greater good.
So manipulation is something that happens all the time in marketing, for example, where we shift the way someone thinks about something, right? Now they associate this thing that they never thought about before with something either good or bad.
Mhm.
That's the type of manipulation. And manipulation in and of itself is kind of neutral.
Yeah.
Because life would be very dull and flat if all we said was, this is a bow, it's made of fabric, it's folded so many times, here's the fabric content. If we never said, oh, I feel so good in this bow. If you put this bow in your hair, you're going to feel like a princess. That's manipulation, right? In a sense. It's again a type of selling, it's a type of thing. And you know, but the thing that Chetan calls this line three energy is being prepared, being clear in your motivations and how to exercise them well. You succeed with or without the help of others when you overcome your fears and doubts. So, that fear of the past, overcoming that and being ready, knowing why, knowing what's in your heart and why you're doing it, right? Knowing your intentions of
Mhm.
why you tell the stories you tell about Christmas, right?
hmm Yeah, absolutely. And there's also this underlying energy with that 26 where it's like maximizing your reward, but minimizing, the output you have to do for that for resourcing, right? Like and when I first read that, I was kind of like, ooh, like that, why doesn't that feel great? So again, with this one, there's a lot that I'm sitting with where I felt like, no, that's wrong. And now really having to look at it in a different light where it makes so much sense when you look at it in the terms like maximizing reward. If you're looking at something like a resource like water, right? If we're taking our water and like filtering it, we want the most water, right? We want to maximize the reward of it, that clean water, and minimize what we're putting into it. But just that within me, that initial reaction. And it'd be interesting to hear, if anybody else has that, looking at and feeling into this gate, especially the 26 and going through these different lines, like how does it feel for you? And are there potentially like other prejudices like you have and stories that you have that you're starting to look at differently now, like a whole new perspective? We've got next line four, and that is censorship. And this is altering memory through elimination, censoring. So that could be the example again of like the resume with the bad jobs. And yeah, just removing those aspects.
Yeah. And Chetan calls it preventing, keeping away from irrelevant and dishonorable forms of interactions. You uphold what you deem as honorable. So it sounds like it's also about, really staying with what's important to you and not focusing on the things that aren't really important. So you might be letting things go, not talking about things, but because I think it's kind of this what we focus on grows, right? So we're going to not talk about, we're going to kind of let go of the downsides and all of that stuff so that we're really focusing on the positives and being, um, giving that the energy to grow. And um,
Yeah, and there's just such a balance with that, right? Where it's like, yes, I can see when it's time to let something go, but also not going too far into that where you're just like, I'm not looking at any of the bad things, right? Oh, it's bad, I'm not here, like having a blind eye towards that as well. So with all things, that balance piece.
so 26, line 5.
Line 5 is adaptability. This energy is really about knowing and understanding how people work, especially with that projection again, and understanding how to work with them. There's almost like this natural resiliency in this 26 to that rejection piece. Where it's like, okay, I'm going to, do it this way. And this comes from that trial and error stage where you're going to learn and see what is working and that you can adapt to these different situations.
Yeah. And Chaitan calls it harnessing, utilizing your accumulated energies wisely. Your willful energy requires careful managing, or it will continuously bring you confrontations. And um, this is this is actually my Venus, and my Mars is the 26th line 4. But
Mm.
yeah, so that's interesting. And I won't go into it because we're running over on time. So let's go to 20, but I might talk about it later. 26
Uh,
line 6.
and line 6, so again, 6th line, this is the bridge. So we're going from the 26 into the 11 is the next place, and that's ideas. And it's going to be line 1, attunement, authority. And this is really about, at that point, the correctness of your actions. And this is when you're in that alignment.
Yeah. Shaitan calls it being poised. Creative energy is released from a place of inner equilibrium. Accumulating and utilizing energy wisely needs you to be balanced. This balance is internal. So this is that clarity, right? That we talked about, like being really clear on what your voice is saying. And the sun is exalted in this, and it says, your willful actions are always going to be justified by their lasting
Mhm.
appropriateness. So, um, we really have that intention being a lot of what people remember, this idea of, kind of where is your heart in this, really adding to how you do things. So like, we all make mistakes or do things that or not even that we don't even necessarily see as a mistake, but others might see as a mistake. And this is that energy that really says, where was your heart in it, right? What was
Mhm.
your intention?
Yeah.
And we went a little long on this, but so there's so much more we could say, but I know that it's time to let everybody go. And if people are watching on the replay, if you can text or put replay in the comments and share your thoughts on any of this. And
Yeah. Let us know, how does this feel right now for you? Is this an energy that feels like an extra boost for you? Does it feel a little bit jarring? Does it feel just very natural? Do you have it activated? Like, let us know how this is showing up for you. And also, just a quick reminder that if you do now have the ego, the will center activated, defined, a big part of the learning in this energy is like, yes, it is the center of resources, which sounds amazing. You're like, I have all the resources, but there's this very important energy of rest. And is it the correct use of your resources? And so Kathy has this defined in her chart, and she beautifully always asks that question: is this the correct use of my resources? For someone like me who doesn't normally have this energy, feeling that, and that's a question I'm going to hold with myself this week. Is this the correct use?
afternoon, you're all going to have defined wills because 2644 is coming on in about, I think it was like 1:35 or 1:45 Eastern. So something like that. We got the moon moving into gate 44. So
Yeah. And if not, if you don't, that's okay, right? That's the experience. There is no right or wrong, you
right.
know?
Yeah, but watch and see how you might feel in this energy coming up, this real desire to push through in places and make sure, or not make sure, but I'd ask you gently to ask, is this really the best use of my energy? Am I doing this to try to prove something? Am I doing this to try to show myself something? Because this sense of proving something is not how we fill our cup, right? We want to give from a full cup, not just be dumping it out to show people how generous we are with our time and ability. So, okay, so we'll see you guys in about 6 days for the next transit talk. Meanwhile, in the group, I'm sure we'll have some conversation about some of this, even if it's just where to buy bows. If anybody needs to know where to buy bows, obviously just ask. Just Tilly is the person to ask. Peace out, everybody.